He, the richest man in the world, possessed thousands of legendary songs, but at the age of 28, he had already entered retirement mode, just as he was planning to spend the rest of his life as a true fishing master. A famous pop diva suddenly showed up at his door holding a 3.5-year-old girl and claimed this was the child they had together. Right now, in a somewhat vintage-decorated living room, he contentedly held a bowl of freshly brewed braised beef instant noodles. Just as he was about to take a sip of the broth, a sudden, urgent series of knocks came from the door, yet they sounded weak. Frowning slightly, he put down his chopsticks. He slipped on his flip-flops and walked to the entryway. The old wooden door creaked open. A fierce gust of wind, carrying freezing rain, instantly rushed in. He instinctively narrowed his eyes. By the dim light of the motion sensor lamp at the door, he could clearly see the scene outside. It was a woman looking incredibly disheveled. Rainwater streamed endlessly down her chin, but she didn't care about herself at all. She was fiercely protecting a small, bundled lump, using her own body as a wall against the rain. Her hands were trembling, turning pale from gripping so tightly. His pupils slightly contracted. Even though that face was as pale as a sheet of paper, he still recognized her at first glance. The pure and radiant songstress who took Asia by storm 4 years ago. The very name that, right now in this world, was caught in the dead center of a media storm.
"Why are you?" Before the words could even leave his mouth,
Xia Qingyue looked up, revealing eyes that were utterly exhausted, yet carrying a glimmer of desperate pleading. "Save her!" Her voice was hoarse and broken, carrying a trembling sob as she begged him to save the child. Xia Qingyue's body suddenly went limp, and she collapsed forward. With lightning reflexes, he took a step forward, catching her firmly. What he touched was a terrifyingly scorching heat. But it wasn't Xia Qingyue's body temperature. It was the heat radiating from the tiny body in her arms. He looked down. What met his eyes was a small face, flushed red from a high fever. It was a little girl, about 3 or 4 years old. Her long eyelashes were still wet with tears. Her breathing was ragged, like a broken bellows. At this very moment, his heart clenched. A strange, unprecedented sensation, like an electric shock, traveled from that burning little body and pierced straight through his soul. It was the undeniable bond of blood. Without needing any paternity test, without needing a single word. S, a transmigrator. E is an existence possessing the memories of 2 lifetimes. The second he touched the child, he was absolutely certain of one truth. This was his own flesh and blood. Or in other words, his only bloodline in this parallel world. Damn it, he cursed inwardly. The mask of laziness and casual indifference he usually wore instantly shattered. He then scooped up both Xia Qingyue and the child, turned around, and strode swiftly into the house. He placed Xia Qingyue down on the living room sofa. His movements were unbelievably gentle. If even the slightest rough handling would shatter these 2 porcelain dolls, even though Xia Qingyue's consciousness was fading. Her hand still gripped his sleeve tightly, her nails almost digging into his flesh. "No hospital. Don't go to the hospital."
"Well, be photographed."
"Please." He looked at her terrified face. Xiao Che's eyes instantly turned ice cold. "We won't go to the hospital." The child was burning up with fever, yet she didn't dare go to the hospital. At that moment, headlines flashed through his mind. The entertainment news from the past few days. Pop diva Qingyue's chaotic private life. Secret love child exposed. Xia Qingyue faces massive breach of contract lawsuit. Blacklisted. It seemed those weren't just rumors.
"Relax.
I'm here. No one is going to take any pictures." His voice dropped low, carrying an unquestionable reassuring power. He gently pried Xia Qingyue's hand away and picked up the delirious, feverish little dumpling into his own arms. The little girl seemed to sense the change and embrace. Feeling a bit uneasy, she wriggled her tiny hands, blindly grasping at the air, until she finally caught hold of one of his fingers and squeezed it tight. His heart instantly melted. Taking a deep breath, he pulled out an old Nokia phone that he normally only used for playing games and dialed an encrypted number.
"Boss,
You finally remembered you still own a financial syndicate." From the other end of the line came an elderly voice, full of surprise and a hint of teasing.
Shut up."
His voice was ice cold, suppressing a volcano on the verge of erupting. "Old Chen, I need a medical team right now. Pediatric specialists. The absolute best. You have 10 minutes. 10 minutes, boss." "That's a bit. 5 minutes." He looked at his daughter's pained little face in his arms, his voice chilling to the bone. "Bring all the necessary equipment here. And don't drive those flashy supercars. Disguise yourselves as a community medical team. If even half a word leaks out, then fire everyone on the board of directors." Old Chen on the other end of the line immediately realized the gravity of the situation. Dropping all jokes, he replied, "Understood. The Apocalypse medical team is deploying immediately. GPS coordinates locked." Hanging up, he casually tossed the phone onto the coffee table. It landed perfectly in the half-eaten bowl of instant noodles. He lowered his head, gently pressing his forehead against the little girl's burning forehead. "Don't be afraid. Daddy's here." There were no blaring sirens, nor was there the deafening roar of helicopter engines. Under the cover of the rainy night, 3 incredibly ordinary-looking gray minivans quietly pulled up at the entrance of Wutong Alley. If anyone looked closely, they would notice the tires were run flats, the windows were bulletproof, and even the undercarriages had been specially modified. A group of people wearing blue vests, printed with community care, carried heavy silver cases, and rushed into the courtyard through the rain. Leading them was a white-haired old man. He was the world's top pediatric master, and the chief medical advisor of Zhao Che's private medical team. In the past, he only treated royalty. Be gentle. He stood in the middle of the living room, still holding the child in his arms, like a guardian deity. After the old man walked through the door, his eyes swept over the shabby sofa, and his mouth twitched slightly. But when he saw the child in Zhao Che's arms, his expression instantly turned professional and stern.
Boss.
Leave her to me. Without any unnecessary words, the living room was transformed into a temporary state-of-the-art ICU in the blink of an eye. Various sophisticated portable high-tech devices were unpacked. Rapid blood sampling and testing. Physical cooling. Intravenous drip. Everything proceeded in silence and with absolute precision. He leaned against the wall, arms crossed over his chest, his gaze locked onto the busy doctors. His eyes seemed to say, if anyone's hand so much as trembles, he would take their life. At this moment, a faint sound came from the other side of the sofa. Xia Qingyue had woken up. She sat up abruptly, her terrified eyes darting around frantically.
Shihan.
Where's Shihan? She's fine. He handed a glass of warm water to her. Xia Qingyue's whole body trembled. Looking up and seeing Zhao Che's calm face, her taut nerves finally relaxed a little. She turned her head, looking at the group of community doctors in blue vests, bustling around her daughter. They are... He lied without batting an eye. Volunteers from the community clinic next door. They happened to be taking shelter from the rain nearby, so I called them in. That old man is a highly skilled, retired traditional Chinese medicine doctor. The chief royal physician, who is currently administering acupuncture to Shihan, twitched his hand and almost missed the acupoint. A retired TCM doctor, Xia Qingyue, didn't understand medicine and being mentally and physically exhausted. She didn't overthink it. She just nodded gratefully, tears uncontrollably welling up again.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. If it weren't for you, I really wouldn't know what to do. He looked at her, his thoughts instantly flashing back to 4 years ago. That year, he had gotten dead drunk at a bar, while Xia Qingyu had been drugged by a competitor. That night, the two of them only had an instinctual release. They hadn't even seen each other's faces clearly. After that incident, he had always searched for that woman, but she had vanished without a trace, even wiping clean all the surveillance footage. Recalling all this now, combined with the bloodline resonance Shihan brought him, he instantly understood everything. He just never expected that. She would get pregnant from that one time, and that Xia Qingyue had raised the child all by herself. Snapping back to reality, he asked in a deep voice, why? Why didn't you come find me sooner? Xia Qingyue's hand, holding the glass of water, froze, her eyes filled with confusion. Find you? Who are you? He suddenly realized, right? Back then, they hadn't even seen each other's faces. How would she know who he was? Just as he was about to explain, the old TCM doctor walked over, catching Zhao Che's subtle wink. He played along perfectly. Young man, the child is fine now. It was a high fever caused by acute pneumonia. Fortunately, it was treated in time. Half an hour later, and there could have been brain damage. The fever has broken. She just needs to rest for a few days. Hearing this, Xia Qingyue went completely limp, almost collapsing again. She couldn't stop thanking him. But the old doctor paused for a moment, pulled out a report, gave Zhao Che a complicated look, and handed it to Xia Qingyue. When we drew blood, I went ahead and ran a genetic comparison screening, just to check for any potential allergens. Ahem. Although it was a bit presumptuous of me, based on the comparison results. Xia Qingyue was stunned. The report was filled with dense data. She couldn't understand it, but the final line struck her like a bolt of lightning. Based on the test results, Jia Shi, Han and Zhao Che have a biological father-daughter relationship with a probability of 99.99%. In truth, this obviously wasn't just going ahead and running it. It was an absolute order he had secretly issued earlier. This single paternity test was worth more than 1,000 explanations he could give later. Xiaka Jio Chia Chia Qnu's hands holding the report began to shake violently. She suddenly looked up at him, her eyes filled with sheer disbelief. It was him. Over the past 4 years, she had imagined countless times what that man looked like. Maybe a bald, wealthy businessman, or some sleazy director. The only thing she never expected was that it would be him. He shrugged, trying to make his expression look innocent yet responsible. Although also very surprised, it really was me that night. Sorry for making you and our daughter suffer. The air froze for a few seconds. Xia Qingyue bit her lip, staring at him intently. If assessing the danger level of this man, right then. Little Shihan stirred slightly on the sofa. A weak, thread-like voice called out, "Mommy?"
Water.
Xia. Qingyue immediately dropped the report and rushed to her daughter's side. He looked at the paternity test lying on the floor, the corner of his mouth curling up slightly. Step 1. Relationship confirmed successfully. After the medical team withdrew, leaving only the family of 3 in the room. The rain was still falling outside, but the atmosphere inside the room had undergone a subtle shift. After drinking some water, Shihan fell back asleep. Her previously flushed little face had returned to normal. Xia Qingyue, however, was a bit awkward. She stood up, nervously patting her pockets. "How much do I need to pay?" "I'll pay you back." He sat in the armchair, picked up the bowl of soggy instant noodles, and casually took a bite. "A lung exam? That old TCM doctor charges a hefty fee." Xia Qingyue's face turned even paler. "About this much?" He held up one finger. 10,000. Xia Qingyue breathed a sigh of relief. She could still scrape that amount together if she borrowed a little. He shook his head. "Nope."
What?
Xia Qingyue's eyes widened. "Are you kidding me? What kind of doctor charges 100 million? Are you out of your mind?" He put down his chopsticks, his expression dead serious. "That doctor said this child's life is priceless. Since it's priceless, charging 100 million isn't unreasonable at all." However, he shifted his tone, looking at Xia Qingyue's angry yet helpless face, a sly glint flashing in his eyes. "Right now, you're penniless and blacklisted by your company. Wandering the streets with a little kid isn't a solution. How about this? No saint either. Well, just put this debt on your tab for now." He pointed to the empty room upstairs. "The second floor is empty until you figure out a way to pay back this 100 million, or until you're capable of protecting Shihan from being harassed by those paparazzi. Just stay here." Xia Qingyue was stunned. She looked at him, trying to spot some hidden motive on his face, but his eyes were clear, even carrying a hint of disdain. If saying 2 more mouths to feed is such a hassle. She turned her head to look at her sleeping daughter, then thought about everything out there, the media waiting to suck them dry, and the company. She truly had nowhere else to go.
Fine.
Xia Qingyue gritted her teeth, her eyes regaining their cold, stubborn resolve. "But I won't stay here for free. I'll cook, I'll clean. And as for the money, I'll pay you back with interest." He chuckled inwardly. "Deal." Over the next 2 days, his small courtyard gained a bit more life, or rather, a sense of suppressed tension. Even though Xia Qingyue stayed, she remained on high alert at all times. She was like a wounded hedgehog, cautiously moving around his territory. Trying not to make a sound, she cleaned the second floor until it was spotless. Every morning, she woke up early to make breakfast for him. Even though it was just simple, plain congee and pickled vegetables, it tasted surprisingly good. Shihan's fever was gone, and her spirits had lifted significantly. This little shadow, despite being only 3.5, was so mature it made one's heart ache. She seemed to know her mother was in a bad mood, so she never fussed or cried. She would just occasionally hide at the top of the stairs, using those big, round eyes that looked exactly like his, to curiously observe him. This man she was supposed to call Daddy. He wasn't in a rush to force a connection. He knew that for this mother and daughter, trust was a luxury. He was waiting for an opportunity. And that opportunity came on the evening of the 3rd day. After dinner that night, Xia Qingyue received a phone call, even though she hid on the 2nd floor balcony and shut the windows tight. With his enhanced hearing, he could still hear every word crystal clear. "President Zhao, I'll figure out a way to pay the breach of contract fee. Please don't harass my family."
What? I never even signed that contract.
"You guys forged it. Escorting clients." "Absolutely not. Never. I'd rather die than go to you people. You're backing me into a corner." The person on the other end seemed to have said something incredibly vile. Xia Qingyue's voice went from furious to trembling, until finally only helpless choked sobs remained. Downstairs, he sat on the sofa, casually flipping through a book on quantum mechanics, but he hadn't turned a single page in ages. In his mind, memories of this parallel world's entertainment industry quickly flooded back. The cultural industry in this world was highly developed. Capital monopolized everything. Traffic was king. Only commercial pop and brainwashing jingles dominated the charts. Works with actual depth and technical skill were suppressed. A breath of fresh air who insisted on writing her own music and refused to play dirty, like Xia Qingyue, naturally became a thorn in the side of the capitalists. The crying upstairs gradually stopped. A long while later, a humming melody, soft and broken, drifted down from the balcony. There was no instrumental accompaniment. Only the gentle post-rain breeze accompanied her singing. It was the song that made Xia Qingyue famous in this world. Colored Glaze, a track considered a masterpiece of traditional style in this world. But to his ears, the melody, though beautiful, lacked a soul. Most importantly, it was just too painful. Reaching the climax of the song, Xia Qingyue's voice cracked, not because of a lack of technique, but because her emotions had completely crumbled. The singing abruptly stopped, replaced by an overwhelming suppressed agony. He closed his book, stood up, and walked over to the desk in the study. He smoothed out a crisp, blank sheet of paper, picked up a priceless Mont Blanc fountain pen, and began to write with fluid grace. After jotting down the final note, he blew gently on the wet ink and walked out of the study, holding the thin sheet of paper. It was already late at night. Xia Qingyue had already coaxed Shihen to sleep and was sitting alone in a dark corner of the living room staring blankly. In front of her lay a bank card. It held all of her remaining savings. Seeing him come downstairs, she hurriedly wiped the corners of her eyes and stood up. "I'm sorry? Did I wake you?" "Ill. Go back to my room right now." He walked over without offering a single word of comfort to Xia Qingyue right now. Cheap words of consolation meant absolutely nothing. He casually tossed the paper filled with lyrics and sheet music down, slapping it onto the coffee table right in front of her. "If you think it's good enough, take it and sing it. If not,
Just use it to prop up a wobbly table leg.
With that, he didn't even spare her another glance. Turning around and walking straight back. Reaching the staircase, he paused, his back still facing her. His voice rang out crystal clear in the dark night. "Oh, right. Stop sitting there crying over nothing. The mother of my daughter must be a queen, not some weak, submissive loser." Xia Qingyue stood frozen in place. She watched his back disappear up the stairs, then looked down at the paper on the table. A moment later, she hesitantly picked it up. Under the dim light of the desk lamp, she softly hummed along. As the song ended, Xia Qingyue's pupils suddenly dilated. She felt as if she had been struck by lightning, goosebumps erupting all over her body. As a former pop diva, her musical intuition was top tier. The way this melody transitioned, the imagery of these lyrics, it completely blew every current hit song on the market out of the water. Outside the window, the rain had stopped. A ray of moonlight pierced through the clouds, illuminating the paper in her hands. In the bottom right corner of the page was a wildly arrogant cursive signature, C. The morning light filtered through Phoenix Tree Alley. Dappled shadows danced across the old wooden floor. The distinct scent of damp earth after the rain lingered in the air. Mixed with the fragrance of nameless wildflowers, Xia Qingyue hadn't slept a wink all night. She maintained that same stiff posture, sitting on the old sofa in the living room, her hands tightly gripping that fragile piece of paper. The edges were slightly crumpled from the sweat on her palms. "You are the distant road, the guiding light in the mountain mist." Xia Qingyue silently mouthed the lyrics, her eyes stinging with tears once again. Wasn't this an exact reflection of her current situation, searching for a way out through the dense fog? For Shahan's sake, she absolutely had to become that guiding light. Click. The sound of a door opening on the second floor echoed, interrupting her thoughts. He walked downstairs, still looking groggy and half asleep. He glanced at Xia Qingyue, who was still sitting on the sofa, like a statue. He raised an eyebrow. "What's wrong?" "Think it sucks. If it sucks, just throw it in the trash. It'll write you something else, like learn to meow or whatever. That's probably more in line with today's market anyway." He said this while walking straight into the kitchen. Soon after, the sound of washing rice came from the kitchen. Xia Qingyue suddenly shot up. Moving so fast she almost knocked over the coffee table, she hurried to the kitchen door, staring at his back as he expertly sliced salted eggs. Her voice trembled with emotion. "Did you really write this song?" He didn't even bother to turn his head. The knife in his hand moved swiftly, dividing a salted egg into 6 perfect wedges.
Didn't you see the signature?
Some netizen named C wrote it. I'm just the middleman.
Why are you interrogating me like you're checking my ID?
Xia Qingyue refused to let it go.
Where is he? Who is he?
I want to meet him. The arrangement concept for this song is incredibly mature. The lyrics and melody blend flawlessly. There is absolutely no way an ordinary netizen could write something like this. Even top-tier composers today, like Wen Shanhai, couldn't possibly produce a masterpiece like this. He turned around, his calm gaze landing on the great superstar Xia. "Get a grip on reality. Right now you owe me 100 million in cash, plus rent and utilities. I gave you this song so you can make money to pay off your debt. As for who the author is, or where he is, what does that have to do with you? You just need to tell me one thing. Can this song rake in the cash? Can it bring your bankrupt studio back from the dead?
Wearing the most ordinary clothes.
Living in the most rundown old house, even agonizing over whether to have porridge or noodles for breakfast. Yet, when he talked about a masterpiece, capable of shaking the entire music industry, his nonchalant attitude, this massive contrast, made her feel a bizarre mix of absurdity and unspoken admiration. Xia Qingyue took a deep breath, clutching the paper tightly in her hand. If this song gets released, I'm absolutely certain I can dominate the charts again. Then her eyes suddenly dimmed. But right now, I'm blacklisted across the entire internet. Xinhuang Entertainment has already put the word out to all the recording studios and distribution platforms. No one dares to take my business, and no one dares to release my music. No matter how good the song is, if it can't be released, it's just scrap paper. Hearing this, he let out a scoff. Blacklisted. Capitalist blacklisting only works on the weak, when your talent is enough to shatter the ceiling. Those capitalists will be like a school of sharks smelling blood. They'll turn right around and grovel at your feet. He then scooped a bowl of porridge and handed it to Xia Qingyue. eat first. You need a full stomach to fight a war. As for the recording studio and distribution, well, cross that bridge when we come to it. Who knows? Maybe some studio boss will suddenly lose their mind today and take your order. Shia Kingyue took the bowl of porridge. The warmth seeped into her palms, making her body, which had been freezing all night, finally feel a trace of warmth. Just then, the pitter-patter of little footsteps echoed from the stairs.
Mommy.
Daddy, Shia-hun, wearing pink bunny pajamas, ran downstairs, rubbing her sleepy eyes. Her fever had completely broken, and her complexion was rosy. The moment she saw him, her eyes instantly lit up like two dark grapes. She had never called anyone daddy before, but perhaps it was the magical pull of bloodlines. Or maybe it was his warm embrace from that night that made her instinctively rely on him.
Oh boy, my little princess.
He put down the rag in his hand, strode over, and scooped Jaya Shihan up, lifting her high into the air and spinning her around. Ha ha ha!
So high.
Daddy, I'm flying so high. Shia Shihan let out a laugh like silver bells, a crisp, joyous sound that could wash away any gloom. Shia Qingyue watched this scene, her eyes turning red. For the past 4 years, she had been dragging Jia Shihan around, hiding everywhere. The child had never laughed as happily as she did today. The father figure that had always been missing was now perfectly filled by him. He set Jia Shihan down on a high chair and frowned at her messy hair. Hold on, let daddy show off his skills. He pulled a comb from under the coffee table, along with a few colorful hair ties from who knows where. Shia Qingyue was just about to say, let me do it, but was stunned by the sight before her. The very hands that were just wielding a meat cleaver, hands that had probably signed billion-dollar contracts, were now incredibly clumsy, yet incredibly gentle as they wove through. Shiahan's soft, fine hair. This left strand. Loop it over here. No, that's not right. It's the right side, he muttered to himself. A thin layer of sweat even broke out on his forehead. This was more nerve-wracking than when he sat at a $30 billion financial negotiation table back in the day. Shia Shihan sat obediently, letting him mess with her hair, still holding half a salted duck egg in her hand, munching on it until her mouth was covered in grease. 10 minutes later, a crooked hairstyle, but barely recognizable as pigtails, was born. Perfect. He looked at his masterpiece, nodding in satisfaction. That genuine sense of accomplishment from the bottom of his heart felt more artistic than a Picasso painting. Peft. Shia Ginue couldn't hold back a laugh. This was the first time she had genuinely laughed in half a month.
What are you laughing at?
He shot her a glare, then pulled a bank card from his pocket and tossed it onto the table. There's some money in this card. Not much. Probably a few 100,000 yuan. The password is your daughter's birthday.
Oh, and it's not 6/8.
He said nonchalantly. Take it and go rent a recording studio. Don't go to the big companies. Find one of those old rundown places hidden deep in an alley. It might be a bit shabby, but no one will be watching. Shia Qingyue was stunned. She stared at the card, a few 100,000. To an ordinary person, that was probably their entire life savings. I can't accept this. He cut her off, his eyes turning stern. I don't do losing deals. If this song blows up, I'm taking a 50% cut. Normally a percentage like that was basically highway robbery. But to Jia Qingyue's ears right now, it made her feel more at ease than any act of charity, because this represented an equal transaction, not a handout. Deal. Shia Qingyue put it away, her gaze turning resolute. If it flops, even if I have to sell my blood, I'll pay you back. No need for blood. He picked up his bowl again, took a big gulp of porridge, and mumbled with his mouth full.
If you ruin your voice singing,
That would be the real loss. Also, once you're done eating, hurry up and leave. Don't bother me and Shihan while we watch cartoons. Shia Qingyue looked at the two figures, one large and one small, with their heads down, slurping porridge. An unprecedented surge of strength welled up inside her. For Shihan, for this family, and for this heavy piece of scrap paper. She absolutely had to win this battle. But after Jia Qingyue hurriedly left, the warm atmosphere in the house instantly vanished. He set his bowl down, picked up that old Nokia phone once again, and walked over to the phoenix tree in the courtyard. The call connected. Old Chen.
boss.
Please give your orders. Check and see. If there's an old recording studio in Beijing City called Qinglang, the owner's surname is Chu. He used to be Xinhuang's top sound engineer. Then he offended President Zhao and got one of his legs broken. Now he's hiding out there, running a small shop. Yes, boss. It's right in alley 13 of the old town. Good. His voice was so calm it didn't betray a single ripple of emotion. Call this guy Chu. Tell him that no matter who comes to record today, even if God himself tries to stop it, he has to open his doors for me. Also, throw out all his garbage equipment. Replace it with a Nive 80RS console. For the mic, use the original edition from the Naples Museum. I don't care what methods you use. Airlift it if you have to. Whatever it takes.
Within 1 hour.
I want to see that equipment set up in that dump of a studio. Old Chen on the other end of the line went silent for 2 seconds. seemingly digesting this outrageous demand. Then, he quickly replied, "Understood. Also, boss, regarding Jinhuang Entertainment." No rush. He tilted his head up to look at the sky. The sky, washed clean by the rain, was an unusually vibrant blue. The corners of his mouth curled into a cold smirk. Let them jump around for a few more days. Once Qingyue finishes recording, it'll teach them what a truly devastating next-level strike looks like in this world. If I want to make someone a star, not even the gods can stop me. Alley 13, Old Town, Beijing City. The streets here were narrow and crowded. The walls were plastered with small flyers, advertising fake diplomas and custom stamps. The air carried the faint stench of stinky tofu and cheap cigarettes. Xia Qingyue wore a mask and sunglasses, pulling the brim of her hat down low. She clutched the document bag tightly to her chest, her fingertips practically digging into the straps, following the address from her memory. Xia Qingyue stopped in front of a basement door with a sign that read Qinglang Instruments. The sign was heavily weathered, half of it already falling off. A thick layer of dust coated the painted door. One look was enough to tell it hadn't been properly maintained in a long time. This place used to be a hangout for many washed-up underground singers. It was also the only place in all of Beijing City that might actually dare to take her business, simply because the owner here, Old Chu, was notoriously eccentric and stubborn. More importantly, he had a deep-seated blood feud with Xinhuang Entertainment. Xia Qingyue gently pushed the door open. A strong wave of mustiness and heavy cigarette smoke hit her face, making her instinctively frown and cough. In the dimly lit basement, she could only vaguely make out the clutter in the corners. A middle-aged man, with graying hair and a scruffy beard, was sprawled out on a tattered sofa, smoking. A walking cane rested against his left leg. He looked lazy and utterly defeated. "We're closed. No customers." Old Chu didn't even bother to look up, leisurely blowing a smoke ring. The smoke drifted through the dim light, blurring his expression. Xia Qingyue took off her mask, revealing a face that, though somewhat haggard, was still stunning enough to take one's breath away. Her voice carried a barely noticeable hint of nervousness. "Mr.
Chu, it's me.
Xia Qingyue." Old Chu's hand suddenly twitched. He slowly raised his head. In those cloudy eyes, a flash of unguarded shock appeared first, immediately replaced by heavy mockery. "Well, if it isn't the great pop diva,
What's wrong? Jinhuang's $1 million recording studios.
can't accommodate a big shot like you anymore. So you come running to my doghouse." Xia Qingyue wasn't angry at all. She understood Old Chu's temper all too well. She also knew about how President Zhao's wife had his leg broken years ago. Behind that mockery hid an unspoken resentment and helplessness. Xia Qingyue cut straight to the chase, looking at him with unwavering eyes. "Mr. Chu, I want to record a song. You're the only one who can help me record it." Old Chu let out a cold laugh, leaning on his cane as he slowly stood up. His left leg was slightly crippled. "Right now, you're like a rat crossing the street. Everyone wants to beat you. Anyone who helps you record is going up against President Zhao. Even though I'm not afraid of that bastard, this dump of mine still needs to stay open so I can eat. Besides, do you even have any songs left to sing?"
Ah,
Xia Qingyue didn't argue. She just quietly pulled the piece of paper from the stack of documents she was holding against her chest and held it out to him. "If you read this and still refuse to record it, I'll leave immediately." Old Chu indifferently took the paper, still muttering complaints. "What kind of garbage song needs all this mystery?" "As you wish. Isn't this title a bit too cheesy?" His eyes casually skimmed over the first line of sheet music. 3 seconds. Just 3 short seconds. The cynical expression on Old Chu's face instantly froze. His eyes widened more and more, and his breathing grew heavy. His chest heaved violently. As a former Golden Tier sound engineer, his sensitivity to melody and lyrics was carved into his very bones. One glance was all it took to know the sheer magnitude of this masterpiece. Old Chu took a deep breath, suddenly grabbing Xia Qingyue's wrist. His grip was shockingly strong, his face full of urgency and excitement. We're recording right now. If a song like this gets buried, even God would strike us down with lightning. I won't even charge you.
ah.
Having this song recorded in my dump of a studio is a blessing for 3 generations of my Chu family." He said this while leaning on his cane, about to head into the inner recording booth. After hobbling 2 steps, he suddenly stopped, slapping his thigh hard. "Damn it, my mic broke last week, and I haven't had the chance to fix it yet. The current recording quality isn't worthy of this song at all." Right at that moment, several men in black suits, wearing white gloves, appearing like ghosts at the basement door, shattering the tense atmosphere in the room. Xia Qingyue and Lao Chu both jolted, instantly on high alert. Lao Chu immediately grabbed a nearby stick, shielding Xia Gue behind him. He glared warily at the newcomers, his tone laced with hostility. The man in black leading them was completely expressionless. He didn't even spare them a glance, simply stepping aside to make way. Behind him, two workers carrying a massive metal case walked in. The heavy case made a soft thud as it was set on the ground. Mr. Chu, someone ordered this equipment and specifically requested it be delivered here. After speaking, the man in black stood to the side in silence. The workers quickly began unpacking the case. As the layers of foam were peeled away,
A vintage-style microphone.
gleaming with a cold metallic luster, was gradually revealed. Lao Chu's eyes instantly went wide, his face full of sheer disbelief.
This.
A limited edition U-47. There are less than 5 of these in the entire world. Even national-level recording studios might not have one. Who sent this? The man in black didn't answer. He just turned, walked up to Xia Qingyue, and handed her a small slip of paper. Then, he and the workers quietly left. Just as mysteriously as they had arrived, Xia Qingyue took the paper. On it was a single line of familiar wild cursive. To do a good job, one must first sharpen their tools.
Don't try to save me money.
Just sing your heart out. No signature, no extra words, but Xia Qingyue recognized it the moment she saw it. Tears instantly welled up in her eyes, rolling down her cheeks and falling onto the paper, blurring the faint ink. So he had already arranged everything. He claimed he didn't care, said it was just to pay off a debt. But behind her back, he was silently paving the way for her. He even managed to track down this legendary equipment. Kiddo, looks like you've got a guardian angel looking out for you. Lao Chu looked at the microphone, then back at Jia Qianyue. Noting her red eyes and deeply moved expression, he immediately understood what was going on. He didn't say another word, and kicked off the recording session with renewed vigor. Meanwhile, in the heart of Zhongcheng City, on the top floor of a skyscraper piercing the clouds, this was the headquarters of the world's top financial syndicate. It was also his true kingdom, even though he was currently in a rundown courtyard in Wutong Alley.
Watching SpongeBob with his daughter Shahan.
His will was being executed here with absolute flawless precision in front of a massive holographic screen. Lao Chen was calmly issuing commands to dozens of top-tier market manipulators and elite hackers. Throughout the entire hall, only the crisp clacking of keyboards could be heard. The atmosphere was tense and solemn. The boss orders are crystal clear. This isn't a buyout, it's an infiltration. Lock down the backends of all major music platforms. Hijack their recommendation algorithms tonight at 8 p.m., no matter what keywords users search for. Even if they're looking for pig feed, the #1 spot on the recommendation list must be Ms. Xia Qingyue's new song, As You Wish. Second, initiate the purge protocol against the bot armies. Those 2 million anti-fan accounts President Zhao bought. I want every single one of them banned within the hour. Third, and most importantly, the boss has spoken. Every cent of profit from this song must be transferred directly into Little Jia Shahan's trust fund. Not a single penny less. There is zero room for error. Lao Chen's voice carried unquestionable authority. Tonight, we're going to teach the entire entertainment industry a very vivid lesson. The subject: what happens when you cross the woman of the richest man in the world, and the consequences that follow. 7:55 p.m. Inside the basement recording studio, the air was so thick you could cut it with a knife. Lao Chu's hands, which had operated countless top-tier mixing consoles and remained steady his entire life, were now slightly slick with sweat. He stared intently at the upload progress bar on the screen, his gaze focused and tense. Are you sure we don't need any marketing? Xia Jingyue sat on the old swivel chair beside him, her hands clasped tightly together. Her voice carried a hint of unease and anxiety. According to industry standards, a new song needs at least a week of hype before release. Buying PR articles, climbing the trending searches, hiring music critics to praise it, having fans control the comments. But this time, I have nothing. Xinhuang Entertainment has already put the word out. They want to blacklist all my resources. Right now, I'm like a mute stranded on a deserted island. Even if I scream myself hoarse, no one will hear me. There is no need. The one who answered wasn't Lao Chu, but him. He had quietly appeared at the basement door at some point. His left hand held little Shihan, who was happily licking a lollipop, while his right hand carried a freshly bought bag of sugar-roasted chestnuts. A good song is like gold. Even if you throw it in the mud, it'll still shine. He picked out a chestnut, carefully popped it into Shihan's mouth, and a subtle, meaningful smirk tugged at the corner of his lips. Besides, the winds tonight are unbelievably favorable.
Ding.
A crisp notification sound rang out. A pop-up appeared on the screen. Upload successful. Artist, Xia Qingyue. At the same time, thousands of miles away in Jingzhou, at the Penguin Music headquarters, Xiao Li, an operations staff member, was slacking off, about to order some takeout. Just as his fingertip touched his phone screen, the data curve on the monitoring screen suddenly spiked in a bizarre right-angle jump. The magnitude was terrifying. What the hell? Did the servers go crazy? Xiao Li nearly did a spit take with his cola, his face full of disbelief. The real-time back-end traffic was completely out of control. Traffic that was supposed to be distributed to top-tier idols or catchy brainwashing pop songs was suddenly seized by an invisible hand. forcibly redirecting its flow. The traffic converged, flooding into a single link that had been uploaded less than a minute ago. In a college dorm, a male student was looking for English listening tracks for his grad school prep. Suddenly, a deep, ethereal intro played through his headphones, breaking his study rhythm. In an office building, a white-collar worker pulling an all-nighter tried to find some soothing music to help with her insomnia. What she found instead was a song called As You Wish. Manager, something huge is happening. The core algorithm looks like it's been hacked. Xiao Li screamed in terror, his voice laced with panic. The technical director rushed over in a frenzy. His fingers flew across the keyboard in a frantic clatter. His expression shifted from doubt to sheer shock, and finally, drained as white as a sheet. He slumped weakly into his chair, muttering, "It's not a hacker. It's not a cyber attack. This is the violent aesthetics of pure capital. It's absolute unstoppable power." Meanwhile, back in the basement recording studio, he sat on the worn-out sofa,
Watching Zaya Qingyue.
anxiously refreshing the webpage on her phone. His eyes remained calm, without a single ripple of emotion. It's been a minute, and there are only 3 plays. And we clicked them ourselves. Xia Genyue smiled bitterly and shook her head, her voice filled with disappointment. Looks like miracles don't happen. Before she could even finish the word, her eyes suddenly went wide. The disappointment on her face was instantly replaced by utter shock. After the page refreshed, the play count skyrocketed from 3 to 30,000. In the blink of an eye, the number exploded again, hitting 300,000. The comment section went from completely empty to flooded in seconds, displaying 999. How is this possible? This wasn't just forced traffic injection. It was an explosive reaction to the sheer quality of the work itself. In every corner of the city, countless people were forced to see the ad. At first, they were annoyed, thinking it was just spam. But the moment they heard the first line, the moment the first melody played, they stopped the fingers that were about to swipe away. On the subway, a middle-aged man who had just been laid off, his heart heavy with exhaustion, felt a spark ignite in his soul. Staring at the lights flashing past the train window, the emotions he had suppressed for so long suddenly burst forth. His eyes grew red, and tears streamed down his face. In a hospital corridor, a daughter who had stayed up all night by her critically ill father's side heard the lyric, "And I wish for your reunion." Unable to hold back the agonizing ache in her heart, she covered her mouth and sobbed uncontrollably. At a desk, a student fighting tooth and nail for their dreams found the courage to persevere within the song, gripping their pen tightly once more. The comment section absolutely exploded. The number of comments skyrocketed at a dizzying pace.
What kind of god-tier song is this?
I refuse to accept that there are people who haven't heard this yet. I was just about to curse the platform for random recommendations, but after listening, I'm back here on my knees. It's so moving. Is this really Xia Jinyue? The same diva who got trashed for her messy private life. My God, her voice must have been kissed by an angel. Am I the only one who noticed the composer and lyricist is C? This C is definitely a master. Every single line of these lyrics pierces right through my heart. In just one short half hour, As You Wish made a spectacular comeback. It claimed the 1 spot on the new releases chart, 1 on the hot tracks chart, and 1 on the trending chart. It utterly dominated every single music chart. Meanwhile, in the offices of Xinhuang Entertainment, President Zhao was holding a glass of expensive red wine, smugly admiring the city skyline outside his window. A victorious smirk played on his lips. Tonight, he had spent a fortune promoting his new rookie girl group. The goal was to capitalize on Xia Jinyue's downfall, completely replace her position, and monopolize the music industry's traffic.
President Zhao. President Zhao.
It's a disaster. His secretary didn't even bother knocking, bursting straight into the room in a panic. Running so fast she lost one of her high heels. Her face was a mask of pure terror.
What are you panicking for? Did the sky fall?
President Zhao frowned, taking a displeased sip of his wine. His arrogant, superior demeanor hadn't faded in the slightest.
Xia Qingyue.
The secretary held up a tablet, her hands shaking violently like she had Parkinson's. Her voice broke. She just released a new song. And so what if she did? President Zhao sneered disdainfully, his face full of contempt. I've already put the word out. Who in this industry would dare recommend her music? I doubt she could even make a ripple. Impatiently, he snatched the tablet from her, glancing carelessly at the screen. The next second, his expression twisted violently. A mouthful of red wine sprayed right onto the expensive tablet screen. How is this possible? President Zhao shot up from his seat, but he moved so fast his knee slammed hard into the edge of the desk. He grimaced in pain, completely losing his composure. His eyes were wide with madness and disbelief. Has QQ Music gone insane? Is NetEase Cloud out of their minds? Or aren't they afraid of crossing Xinhuang? He grabbed the phone on his desk and furiously dialed the heads of the major music platforms, his voice dripping with rage.
Hello.
President Wang. What the hell are you doing? Didn't we agree to blacklist Xia Qingyue? Beep, beep, beep. The only response was a cold, busy signal. No one answered. Or rather, no one dared to answer. President Zhao's face turned ashen. He frantically made over a dozen more calls. Finally, the head of a smaller platform picked up. His voice was kept extremely low, revealing a poorly concealed terror. Old Zhao. Stop asking. We didn't want to do this. It came from above. Above?
Who?
The Bureau of Culture. President Zhao demanded through gritted teeth, even higher than that. The man's voice trembled. I just got the news. Several massive Wall Street syndicates directly pressured all the major platforms. Whoever dares to take this song down, their stock price will be slashed in half by tomorrow. Old Zhao, you're on your own. Xia Qingyue has a literal god backing her. The call was abruptly cut off. Only a long dial tone echoed in his ear. President Zhao collapsed limply into his executive chair. A god. That woman dragging around a bastard child. Shez. So broke Shez living in the slums. What kind of god could possibly be backing her? If she really had one.
Why has she been living like a dog for the past 4 years?
Letting me mold her however I wanted. A gleam of crazed cruelty flashed in President Zhao's eyes. In the entertainment industry, I, Zhao, am the only god. He suddenly glared at his secretary, who was standing beside him, trembling. He roared through gritted teeth. Contact Black Walnut Studio right now. Dig up every single piece of dirt on Xia Qingyue, especially that bastard child of hers. I want the entire internet to know that this song is sung by a shameless slut. Let's see her bounce back from that. In the small courtyard at Wutong Alley, the post-rain moonlight was exceptionally gentle, casting a faint hazy glow over the bluestone path. The faint scent of earth and fresh grass lingered in the air. Xia Qingyue sat on a stone bench in the yard, watching the play count and comments, ski-rocketing on her phone. She was in a complete daze. Number 1. It's really number 1. She muttered to herself, her eyes blank but shimmering with a ray of hope. He was sitting on a small stool, meticulously teaching Xia Shihan how to peel a chestnut perfectly intact. Hearing Xia Jingyue's words, he didn't even look up. He just casually remarked, "That just proves the listeners aren't deaf this time."
Thank you.
Xia Qingyue turned around, looking at the heartwarming sight of the father and daughter before her. The emotions pent up deep inside her could no longer be contained. Tears fell like pearls from a broken string. These weren't tears of ecstasy from returning to the top. They were tears of a long-lost sense of security, of knowing someone was silently protecting her. It was warm and full of strength. "Don't thank me." He popped a cleanly peeled chestnut into Xia Shihan's mouth, then slowly stood up. He walked over to Xia Qingyue, reached out, and gently tucked a stray lock of hair behind her ear. The gesture was natural and tender. His eyes were calm but profound. "If you want to thank someone, thank yourself. You're the one who sang it beautifully. Besides, this is only the beginning. Diva Xia, you'd better brace yourself. Tonight is just the start. Tomorrow, those demons and monsters are going to lose their minds. Are you scared?" Xia Qingyue looked into his eyes, which seemed capable of weathering every storm life had to offer. She took a deep breath, pushing down the weakness in her heart. Her gaze gradually grew firm and strong. "I'm not scared." Early the next morning, the sunlight was blindingly bright, but in the dark corners of the internet, a meticulously planned, sinister storm was quietly brewing. As You Wish still dominated the top of the charts. Its streaming numbers had surpassed a staggering 500 million through every major street and narrow alley, from shopping malls to hair salons. This healing masterpiece was playing on an endless loop. However, on social media's trending search lists, several glaring dark red keywords were surging at an unnatural speed. Exposed, Xia Qingyue's bastard child. The pure diva's image collapses. The dirty deals behind As You Wish. Mysterious sugar daddy keeps washed-up artists clicking on the keywords. Revealed a slew of blurry, secretly taken photos, accompanied by highly inflammatory text. There were even so-called insiders leaking info, claiming that 4 years ago, Xia Qingyue sold her body to climb the ranks and was abandoned after an accidental pregnancy. The tide in the comment sections instantly turned. The very people calling her a goddess last night were now being led astray by the bot armies, throwing everything into chaos. Vicious curses echoed everywhere. In the small courtyard, Xia Qingyue's hands shook violently as she held her phone. Her face was as pale as a sheet. The thing she feared most had finally happened. She could probably endure them attacking her. But attacking Shihan, he reached out and snatched the phone from her hands, casually tossing it into the farthest corner of the sofa.
Stop looking at it.
Let's eat. They're cursing Shihan. They're calling her a bastard child. Zhao Tace. People have already started tracking down this address. We need to, I said. Let's eat. His voice wasn't loud, but it carried an unquestionable authority. He then slowly sat down at the head of the dining table and placed a piece of egg into Shihan's bowl. Shihan, do you want to go to the amusement park today? His voice instantly softened, his demeanor completely different from a moment ago. I do. Shihan waved her little spoon, replying in her sweet, milky voice, I want to ride the carousel. After we finish eating, Daddy will take you out. Xia Qingyue was completely panicking. Xiao Che, are you crazy? It's swarming with paparazzi out there right now. The moment we step out that door, we'll be mobbed. Do you have any idea how serious this is? He slightly raised his eyelids and glanced at her. There wasn't a single trace of panic in his eyes, only an indifference, as if he were just watching a play. Serious? It's just a few buzzing flies. Does that even deserve to be called serious? He pulled out that old model Nokia, spinning it lightly on the table. You need to remember one thing. When you stand at the peak of the mountain, the mud beneath your feet can't stain you. The only reason you feel dirty right now is because you aren't standing high enough. As soon as he finished speaking, a sudden commotion erupted outside the courtyard wall. This is the place. The GPS shows it's right here. Hurry up, climb over. That little bastard is definitely in the yard. If we get a shot, it's breaking news. President Zhao said a clear front-facing photo is worth 100,000. Several men carrying cameras stepped onto ladders, struggling to climb over the ivy-covered wall, their greedy lenses pointed inside, aiming straight at the family of three sitting at the dining table. Shihan was so scared she shuddered. Her little spoon dropped to the ground. She burst into loud, sobbing tears. Bad men. Xia Qingyue's expression changed drastically. She instinctively rushed over to protect the child.
Stop taking pictures.
You're trespassing. Get out. Click, click, click. The camera shutters fired off continuously like machine guns. Even in broad daylight, the camera flashes were blindingly harsh. The paparazzi on the wall looked thrilled, their mouths spewing non-stop filthy shouts. Miss Xia, look over here. Cared to explain who the baby daddy is. Is it some sugar daddy? Some coal mine boss? Xia Qingyue desperately shielded Shihan's face.
Ah.
Her body trembled uncontrollably. His eyes gradually turned ice cold. He reached out and picked up an ordinary bamboo chopstick from the table.
Whoosh.
A sharp sound tore through the air. No one even saw how he made his move. They only saw an after-image streak across the sky, striking dead center into the camera lens, in the hands of the loudest, most obnoxious paparazzo. Bam! The telephoto lens, worth tens of thousands, exploded instantly. Shards of glass shattered everywhere. My eye. The paparazzo let out a blood-curdling scream, clutching his face as he tumbled headfirst off the wall. Bang! He kicked the courtyard door wide open. There was no entourage of bodyguards. It was just him alone. But the overwhelming aura radiating from his body made these usually arrogant paparazzi feel suffocated, their legs going weak uncontrollably. Who just said a photo is worth 100,000? He walked up to the paparazzo writhing on the ground, looking down at him from above. You dare hit me?
I'm calling the cops.
I'm gonna expose you. You're dead meat.
You're that little bastard's fake daddy, aren't you?
Just you wait. The paparazzo clutched his face, stubbornly screaming threats. He smirked slightly. He leaned down, turned his phone on speaker, and held it in front of the man's face. A cold, mechanical voice came from the other end of the line. It was the executive of the media empire he secretly controlled, the director of the legal department at Universal News, the largest media conglomerate in the world. Boss, through facial recognition, we have confirmed a total of 5 troublemakers at the scene. Criminal evidence for all their illegal activities has been fully compiled. It's been sent to the Jiangzhou City Security Bureau and Tax Bureau. Furthermore, all of their bank accounts have been frozen. As for President Xiao's Xinhuang Entertainment, the person on the other end paused for a moment, then continued. The stock market attack has begun. Xinhuang's stock is expected to hit the limit down and halt trading in 10 minutes. He looked at the lackey's face, which had instantly drained of color. His tone was as gentle as if he were checking in on an old friend. Hear that? This is the power of this fake daddy. Right now, you have 3 minutes until the cops arrive. Before then, I'll give you 2 choices. 1. Crawl inside on your knees and apologize to my daughter, and wipe her tears off the floor. 2. Your trashy studio, and that Zhao guy can all disappear from this world together. The lackey completely broke down. Just now, his phone had been vibrating like crazy. Bank notifications stating his accounts were frozen. His wife calling in tears, saying their house was being seized. The studio boss going insane in the group chat, screaming that they had been blacklisted across the entire internet. Everything collapsed in the blink of an eye. I choose option 1.
Boss.
No, Grandpa. I was wrong. I had eyes but failed to see Mount Tai under Xia Qingyue's astonished gaze. The reporters who were so arrogant just moments ago were now like dogs with their tails tucked between their legs. They scrambled and crawled into the courtyard. They knelt in front of little Shihan, who was still sobbing, slapping their own faces while kowtowing. Little princess, we're so sorry.
We're animals?
We're the bad guys?
Please don't cry anymore. We're begging you, please don't cry. Shihan stopped crying. She blinked her big, tear-filled eyes and looked at her dad in confusion.
What are they doing?
He walked over and picked his daughter up, gently wiping the tear stains from her face. They're putting on a show. It's called The Bad Guys Learn Their Lesson. He finished speaking with a smile, then turned his head to look at Xia Qingyue. At this moment, Xia Qingyue looked at this ridiculous yet deeply satisfying scene, then looked at him, holding their child and completely in control of the situation. Yet his demeanor was incredibly calm. She suddenly realized that from today onward, even if the sky fell, there was someone here to hold it up.
All right, the show's over.
He waved his hand dismissively, like shooing away flies. Get lost. Go turn yourselves in. And remember, next time you see this door, take a detour. Otherwise, next time, it won't just be a camera lens that shatters. The reporters looked as if a massive weight had been lifted off them. They scrambled and crawled away from the scene, closing the courtyard door. The world returned to peace and quiet. He turned around and looked at Jia Qingyu, his tone returning to its usual lazy drawl. Oh, right. I don't think I finished that egg from earlier. It won't taste good if it gets cold. Jia Qingyu burst out laughing. She laughed, and then her eyes grew red. Disregarding everything, she rushed forward and hugged him, and Shihan.
Thank you.
His body stiffened for a moment, then relaxed. One hand gently patted her back, touched already. Then he leaned close to her ear and whispered, "The real show is just getting started. Since President Zhao loves playing public opinion warfare so much, I'll give him a grand gift. Since he runs an entertainment company, then I'll just buy out the entire entertainment industry and give it to our daughter as a playground." Xia Qingyue looked at him, as if she were looking at a complete stranger. If the song As You Wish had shown her his talent, then the scene today showed her an unfathomably deep hidden side of him. It was just the tip of the iceberg.
Who exactly are you?
She finally asked the question that had been lingering in her mind countless times. Are you the landlord and doctor? The god-tier music composer? Or the boss those people were talking about? Xiao Che brushed the dust off his pant leg, stood up, and returned to his usual lazy, carefree demeanor. He walked up to her, looking into her eyes, which were filled with scrutiny and unease. Does it really matter who I am? He reached out, gently pinching Jia Shihan's chubby cheek. To Jie Shihan, I'm her dad. And to you, I'm your creditor. Are those two identities not enough? Xia Qingyue bit her lip. But everything you've shown, and those methods of yours, if you're such a big shot,
Why do you live in a place like this?
why? Because I'm tired, that's all. He stretched his arms, cutting off her interrogation. He turned around, looking at this old, small, yet vibrant courtyard. A genuine trace of exhaustion revealed itself in his eyes. The memories of Earth from his past life, combined with the years of battling in the business world after transmigrating. He was truly tired. He had made enough money to last several lifetimes and held enough power to shake the entire world. But he realized that what he craved the most was nothing more than a hot bowl of noodles. A peaceful life free from scheming. It wasn't until he met Jia Qingyue and her daughter that this peace finally took on a concrete form. As for my methods, his eyes suddenly turned as sharp as an unsheathed sword. Qingyu, you have to understand that in this dog-eat-dog world, if you want to protect that tiny bit of peace, you must hold an absolute butcher's blade in your hands. I don't want to be some big shot, nor do I want to be a savior, but no one is allowed to touch my people. He said those words very lightly, but they struck Jia Qingyue's heart like a sledgehammer. She looked at his broad back, her eyes suddenly stinging with tears. For the past 4 years, she had always been a lone little bird flying through a storm, constantly on guard against hunting rifles and traps. But now, finally, someone was telling her to land. That here there was a tree, a nest, and a hunter standing guard. All right, stop spacing out. He turned back around, his tone becoming playful again. To celebrate catching those flies, we need to upgrade our dinner tonight. I want braised pork ribs. Make sure to add extra sugar. Xia Qingyue laughed through her tears, wiping them away vigorously. Okay, it'll add so much sugar it'll kill you with sweetness. Meanwhile, in a luxurious villa in Jiangcheng City, President Zhao was on the verge of a breakdown.
What do you mean you can't find anything?
Are you all useless? He grabbed a bottle of Louis XIII cognac and smashed it violently against the wall. Shards of glass flew everywhere. The red liquid dripped down like blood. Just now, he had watched helplessly as the market value of Xinhuang Entertainment evaporated by 3 billion. What was even more terrifying was that his ace in the whole paparazzi studio, Black Fox, seemed to have vanished from the face of the earth, crushed to death without the slightest ability to resist. All clues pointed to Wutong Alley, pointing straight at him, this seemingly ordinary young man. But he had mobilized his entire network of connections, even reaching out to his underworld contacts to investigate. And the only result he got was 2 words: top secret. His files were encrypted. The ownership of the courtyard was encrypted. Even Shahan's birth certificate had become an S-class secret, the highest level of security in the system. President Xiao's secretary stood trembling at the door, holding a newly received fax. The tax bureau said, they want to thoroughly investigate those yin-yang contracts from last year, and several of our pre-arranged investors just pulled their funding all at once. President Zhao was shell-shocked. The world spun around him as he collapsed onto the sofa. An unprecedented fear engulfed him completely. He finally realized that he hadn't just kicked an iron plate. He had kicked a nuclear reactor. The other party didn't even need to show their face. With just a snap of their fingers, they could reduce his entertainment empire to ashes. No, I haven't lost yet. A cornered beast's madness flashed in President Zhao's eyes. He had been rolling in this industry for years. What kind of storms hadn't he seen? Capital might be terrifying, but in an era where traffic is king, as long as he still had cards to play, he still had a chance to turn the tables. Xia, Qingyue, you want to make a comeback? You think you can use that song to wash yourself clean? He gritted his teeth, his voice dripping with malice. Go contact the director of Masked Singer, no matter how much it costs. We must secure the next challenger spot. If someone is protecting you online, then it'll ruin your reputation right there on stage. It'll make sure that in front of hundreds of millions of viewers, you won't be able to sing a single note, and you'll be utterly humiliated. If I can't play dirty tricks in the shadows, then it'll play my cards right out in the open with you. The next day, the weather was unusually beautiful. He took Jia Jingyue and Shihan to Dreamland Amusement Park, the largest in Jiangcheng. This place was a holy land for children, but a forbidden zone for celebrities. The foot traffic was incredibly high. If any artist with even a bit of fame showed up, it would cause a disastrous mob scene. This was exactly what Jia Jingyue had been worrying about. He watched Jia Jingyue standing in front of the mirror, fully geared up, a baseball cap, sunglasses, a mask, and a baggy jacket wrapping her up until she looked like a terrorist. Only her anxious eyes were left exposed. She was still checking herself over and over again, terrified of leaving any flaws in her disguise. Beside her, Shihan was wearing a pink princess dress, with a Mickey Mouse headband he had just bought her on her head, and hugging a new teddy bear that was half her height. She tilted her little head, looking at her, and asked in her sweet, milky voice, "Mommy, are you cosplaying as a teenage mutant ninja turtle?" He was squatting on the ground, tying Shihan's shoelaces. Hearing that, he looked up at Jia Jingyue, and couldn't help but burst out laughing. He had to admit the resemblance was uncanny, though a ninja turtle doesn't have a figure as nice as yours. Jia Jingyue shot him a glaring look, even through the sunglasses. He could clearly feel her anxiety. You're still laughing. Today is the weekend. The amusement park is going to be packed. If I get recognized and a crowd swarms us, Shihan will be terrified. Besides, even though yesterday's trending searches were taken down, there are definitely still people who remember my face. He stood up, his tone carrying a hint of helplessness, but also a sense of absolute certainty. That's where you're wrong. As he spoke, he reached out and took off her sunglasses. Next was the mask. And finally, that ugly baseball cap. Her cascading, ink-black hair instantly tumbled down under the sunlight, radiating a soft, gentle glow. Her breathtakingly elegant face was exposed to the air. So beautiful, it took one's breath away. Since we're going out to play, we should do it openly and proudly. He casually tossed the disguise items onto the sofa. His voice was gentle yet firm. If you look at the world through sunglasses, even a rainbow will look gray. Shihan doesn't want her mom sneaking around like a thief while playing with her either.
Right. But
Jia Jingyue panicked again, her voice full of worry.
What about safety?
Relax.
He adjusted his shirt collar, leaned down to hold Shihan's soft little hand, and with his other hand, he naturally took Jia Jingyue's hand. His palm was broad and dry, carrying a reassuring warmth. He just wanted her to know that with him here, there was nothing to worry about in this world, as long as I want it to be so. You are invisible. Or rather, the whole world will cooperate with us. To put on a play of turning a blind eye, Jia Jingyue was half skeptical, but ultimately let him lead her out the door by the hand. Half an hour later, they arrived at the entrance of Dreamland Amusement Park. He could feel Jia Jingyue gripping his hand tightly. Her body was stiff. She had clearly braced herself to be swarmed, pointed at, or even worse. However, something strange happened. The staff at the ticket gate just politely scanned the QR code on his phone, smiled, and said, "Have a great time," seemingly completely unaware that the person in front of them was the pop diva Jia Jingyue, who had just swept across social media yesterday. Stepping into the park, it was indeed a bustling sea of people, incredibly lively. But the miraculous thing was, no matter where they went, the surrounding crowd would subconsciously keep their distance from them. About 2 meters away, there was no pushing or shoving, no crowding, and absolutely no one casting weird glances their way. He looked at the utterly astonished Jia Jingyue beside him, hiding a barely noticeable smile in his eyes. She still didn't know that, in exchange for this half-day of peace, he had already mobilized the Skynet security system. The 200 tourists blending into the crowd over there were all plainclothes bodyguards he had arranged. They pretended to take photos, or look at maps in the most natural way possible, silently blocking any passerby who might approach or recognize her. What was even more interesting was that Qingyu noticed the attention of the surrounding tourists seemed to be drawn to all sorts of bizarre things. From the bushes by the road, a pack of incredibly cute robot dogs suddenly ran out and started dancing, attracting a massive crowd of tourists who raised their phones to take pictures. A fleet of drones in the sky was shifting into all kinds of dazzling patterns. Not far away, there were even a few people cosplaying as currently trending pop idols, handing out balloons luring away all the fangirls to somewhere else entirely. His family of 3 was like a bubble drifting through a crowded school of fish. Though it was noisy all around, they maintained a miraculously peaceful atmosphere. This was exactly the effect he wanted. He didn't use his power to clear the crowds, but rather paid a much higher price to create a sense of natural normalcy, so she could play with her child without any burdens.
What?
What's going on?
Xia Qingyue looked at him in astonishment and asked softly, holding the 2 ice cream cones he just bought. He handed one to each of them. He casually brushed it off. Everyone's probably just having a lucky day. They must have found something more interesting to look at. Look, isn't that clown's performance amazing? Of course, he wasn't going to tell her the truth. Some forms of protection are best done in secret.
The carousel.
Shihan suddenly squealed with excitement. Her tiny hand pointed not too far away, at a massive double-decker carousel. Her eyes were sparkling with anticipation. He smiled and picked her up, his voice full of doting affection.
Let's go.
Daddy will put you on the tallest white horse, okay? Soft music began to play. The wooden horses slowly started to spin. Shihan sat on the horse's back, smiling so wide her eyes turned into little crescents. Her small hands tightly gripped the pole. He stood right beside her, carefully guarding her, his doting gaze practically overflowing. Out of the corner of his eye, he caught a glimpse of Xia Qingyue sitting in the pumpkin carriage behind them, watching the backs of the father and daughter. Her eyes gradually grew red. He knew that this simple, warm scene used to be the most extravagant wish in her dreams. No camera flashes, no schedules, no managers rushing her, and no nightmares about breach of contract penalties. There was only sunshine, the sweet taste of ice cream, the music, and her loved one and child. Hey! He suddenly turned his head, catching her right as she was secretly wiping her tears. He couldn't help but tease her. If you're so moved that you start crying, and your ice cream melts all over your hands. I'm not doing your laundry, you know. Xia Qingyue laughed through her tears, raising her ice cream as if to throw it at him. Can't you be romantic for more than 3 seconds? Romantic. He raised an eyebrow, his tone turning a bit more practical. That stuff is too unrealistic. I prefer living in reality. For example, he raised his hand and pointed into the distance. That towering Ferris wheel over there. I heard that making a wish at the very top actually comes true. Even though I'm a materialist. For you, I can be superstitious for 5 minutes. The Ferris wheel slowly ascended. It was very quiet inside the cabin. Shihan pressed her face against the glass, watching the city gradually shrink beneath them, occasionally letting out gasps of amazement. He and Xia Qingyue sat next to each other, in the cramped space. Their breathing was clearly audible. The atmosphere suddenly grew subtly intimate.
Thank you.
Xia Qingyue looked down at her toes, her voice very soft but brimming with sincerity. Not just for today, but for everything. He tilted his head to look at her. The sunlight pierced through the glass, illuminating her side profile. Even the fine peach fuzz on her skin was clearly visible. In this moment, she had shed all her defenses and tough exterior, looking so soft and vulnerable that it made his heart ache.
Qingyue.
He dropped his playful demeanor, his voice turning deep and serious. She gave a soft hum of acknowledgement, looking up at him, her eyes full of tenderness. You don't need to thank me. I'm a businessman. Investments must yield returns. He could feel Xia Qingyue's heart skip a beat. A flash of confusion and panic crossed her eyes. Returns. What kind of returns did he want? He reached out and gently placed his hand over hers, resting on her knee. The warmth from his palm seeped into hers, soothing her panic. The return I want is that from now on, you just focus on shining on stage.
Leave the remaining darkness for me to shoulder.
The stage you once lost, the dignity that was taken from you, and even the joy you were robbed of. I will take them all back for you, every single one, with interest. Xia Qingyue's head snapped up, meeting his gaze as deep as the ocean. Tears welled up in her eyes. At that exact moment, the Ferris wheel reached its highest peak. It felt as if the entire world was laid out beneath their feet, vast and breathtakingly beautiful. Just as their eyes were locked together, and the atmosphere was about to reach its breaking point, Shihan suddenly turned around, shouting in her sweet, childish voice, "Daddy."
Mommy.
Look, there's a big screen over there with Mommy's name on it. Both of them froze simultaneously, following the direction Shihan was pointing. On a commercial skyscraper in the distance, an LED screen was broadcasting an incredibly eye-catching advertisement. The final challenge of Masked Singer this year's grand edition. The mysterious singer, the Wanderer, is about to be revealed. Who can end the legendary winning streak? This Friday at 8 p.m. Tune in to find out. Below the text. The ad didn't show a picture of Xia Qingyue, but instead displayed an image that only industry insiders would understand the hidden meaning of. It was Xia Qingyue's iconic look. From her performance 4 years ago, he saw Xia Qingyue's expression change instantly, her face filled with shock and panic. She whispered softly, "Masked Singer. That's a show funded by Xinhuang Entertainment. They're trying to force me onto the stage right now." He understood perfectly well. Releasing this kind of promotional material without the artist's consent was clearly a setup to hype her up just to tear her down. If she didn't show up, she'd be branded as a diva who chickened out before the competition. But if she did go, what awaited her was highly likely another trap. A literal Hongman banquet. He stared at that screen, his eyes instantly turning ice cold. The warmth from moments ago vanished without a trace, replaced by the thrill of a hunter watching prey walk into a trap. President Zhao, that old fox, clearly hasn't learned his lesson yet. He tightly grasped Jia Jiajiu's cold hand, a bloodthirsty smirk forming on his lips. His tone was resolute and domineering. If he wants to hear you sing that badly,
Then, well, go.
but the script for this little play needs a few revisions. If you're going to sing, you'll sing until he questions his very existence. Sing until his Xinhuang Entertainment goes bankrupt on the spot. He looked straight into Xia Qingyue's eyes, asking her word by word, Qingyue, are you ready for your coronation? Friday, 8 p.m. Studio 1, Zhongcheng Radio and Television Broadcasting Station. This was the venue for the variety show, with the highest viewership ratings in all of Hoaxia. The live broadcast of Masked Singer, from the massive domed ceiling, hung an array of expensive stage lights. In the center of the stage was a musical sanctuary constructed using 3D projection mapping. Below sat an audience of 5,000, along with a judging panel of 3 veterans from the music industry. And behind the screens were hundreds of millions of viewers watching online. In the backstage waiting corridor, the air was thick with suffocating tension. He looked at Jia Jingyue, who was wearing a silver mask. The mask was encrusted with crushed diamonds, with a single crimson teardrop painted near the corner of the eye. This was the alias he had given her, Stray Cat. Not a queen, not a goddess, but a stray cat. He had told her that the old Jia Qingyue was dead. The one returning now was a wild beast resurrected from the dead. He was still dressed in his casual everyday clothes, only to blend into the backstage area. He wore a staff badge for a temporary assistant around his neck. In his hand, he held a thermos, filled with brewed malva nut tea. Worried she might strain her throat from singing too much,
Nervous.
he asked her softly. Xia Qingyue took a deep breath. Her hands were freezing cold. Her voice was filled with anxiety. I heard tonight's gatekeeper is the king of pop, Pei Sei, Xinhuang Entertainment's top artist. It's definitely President Zhao's doing. He arranged for him to block me tonight. Xiao Che unscrewed the thermos, blew on the hot steam, and handed it to her. His tone carried a hint of disdain. Just because Hez loud doesn't mean he can sing.
Relax.
Tonight's script isn't in their hands. It's in God's hands, and as it happens, am well acquainted with God. Just then, the dressing room door was shoved open roughly. The show's assistant director, a meaty-faced man, barged in. His aggressive gaze swept over Jia Qingyue, his tone arrogant. Hey, stray cat, it's your turn. Hurry up. Don't dawdle. Keep in mind that tonight is a live broadcast. If anything goes wrong, selling you wouldn't even cover the damages. After saying that, he gave Jia Qingyu a meaningful look, specifically at the in-ear monitor receiver clipped to her waist. A sinister smirk crept onto his lips. A glint flashed in Zhao Che's eyes. In an instant, he understood everything. That receiver had been tampered with 10 minutes ago. President Zhao really wasn't going to let her off easy. On stage, the lights suddenly went out. Only a single solitary white spotlight remained. Shining down on the center of the stage, Xia Qingyue slowly stepped onto the stage. Without any elaborate styling, she looked pure and aloof, like a white flower blooming on a cliffside. The music started a song that had never existed in this world before, Upwards to the Moon. He chose this song because he wanted to use its peak vocal techniques and high notes to silence everyone. In this world, high notes were often seen as the ultimate symbol of vocal prowess, and this song was the Mount Everest of high notes. The intro was an ethereal hum the moment Jia Jingyue opened her mouth. That signature diamond-clear voice of hers instantly captivated every ear in the room. He sat in the darkness backstage,
Watching her on stage?
a smile playing on his lips. But the very next second, disaster struck. Just as the song was about to enter its first soaring chorus, an incredibly difficult key change that required perfect pitch, screech, a deafening feedback squeal suddenly erupted from the mic, piercing everyone's eardrums like a knife. Immediately after, the backing track abruptly cut out. The entire studio plunged into a dead silence. He saw Jia Jingyue cover her ears in pain. Her body swayed, almost collapsing right there on stage. What came through her earpiece wasn't music, but a sharp 100-decibel blast of static. Without even looking at the livestream chat, one could imagine the absolute chaos unfolding there. Some were mocking her. Some were doubting her. Some were confused. Meanwhile, in the VIP box, some were confused. Meanwhile, in the VIP box, President Zhao was staring at the monitor, likely assuming it was just equipment interference. On stage, Jia Jingyue fell into despair. No backing track, a broken earpiece, facing thousands of questioning eyes. Under the blinding stage lights, a wave of isolation swallowed her whole. She opened her mouth, but no sound came out. He knew exactly what she must be thinking right now. Is it over? Is the hope that just reignited going to be snuffed out like this?
It wouldn't.
He was here. He wouldn't let her fall again. At that moment, he stood up and walked toward the stage, stepping out from the shadows that the light had never touched. There sat a black grand piano that he had arranged beforehand. He sat down, his fingertips lightly brushing the keys.
Ding.
A crisp, clear piano note rang out, pure and full of power, carrying a calming force that steadied the soul. It instantly pierced through the noisy chatter. Everyone was stunned. A backlight suddenly flicked on, illuminating the piano, and illuminating him. He wore a pitch-black half-mask, revealing only his sharp jawline, and eyes as deep as the night sky. He was still in that white dress shirt, sleeves casually rolled up, exposing his muscular forearms. His fingers danced across the keys, pouring out a cascade of melodies as clear as flowing water. An epic, sweeping melody. This arrangement was even purer than the original track, and even more soul-stirring. He tilted his head slightly, looking across the half-lit stage. Xia Qingyue, who stood alone and helpless. He didn't say a word, but his eyes sent a clear, unwavering signal.
Sing.
"I'm here." Xia Qingyue looked at him, tears streaming down her face. In that moment, the static in her earpiece seemed to vanish. The audience's doubts faded away. In her world, there was only that piano, and the power flowing from his fingertips. She took a deep breath, closed her eyes, and raised the microphone once more. This time, her voice didn't tremble. Instead, it erupted with an unprecedented surge of energy. His piano playing intertwined perfectly with her vocals. When she soared to the high notes, the piano roared like 10,000 galloping horses. When she dropped to the low notes, the piano softened like a gentle, nourishing rain. They hadn't rehearsed this at all, yet they shared a deep, soulful synergy, as if they had performed together 1,000 times before. The song reached its absolute climax, the ultimate test for a coloratura soprano. Xia Qingyue threw her head back. 3 consecutive high notes burst forth like a phoenix's nirvana, each note higher than the last, each note brighter than the last, shaking the very core of everyone present. His left hand flicked lightly, his right hand striking the keys, gathering the mist by the river of forgetfulness. His hands turned into a blur over the keyboard. The piano surged like a raging storm, elevating her voice, sending her soaring into the clouds. Boom! The final high note ended. The piano abruptly stopped. Xia Qingyue stood under the spotlight, her chest heaving violently, sweat rolling down her cheeks. She looked like a goddess of war returning victorious from battle, radiating a brilliant, blinding aura. The entire auditorium was dead silent for 5 seconds. Then thunderous applause erupted, along with screams that echoed in everyone's ears.
Oh my God.
Is that even a human voice?
Who is that guy on the piano?
Hez, so handsome. That accompaniment was a god-tier save. This isn't a disaster scene. This is an absolute masterpiece of art. My mom asked why I am on my knees watching a live stream. The 3 veteran judges shot up from their seats, so thrilled they were practically babbling. This is definitely the performance of the year. No, it's the most mind-blowing live performance of the decade, even without a backing track, even with equipment failure. They used their sheer undeniable talent to turn a disaster into a magnificent musical feast. Xia Qingyue took off her earpiece and turned to look at him by the piano. He slowly stood up. He didn't bow, just stood in the shadows, softly clapping to congratulate her. Then, with the polite gesture of a true artist, he yielded this shining moment entirely to her. He only wanted to be the man behind the scenes, lifting her up. Backstage, one could easily imagine President Zhao's furious expression. The wine glass in his hand had probably been smashed to pieces. Where the hell did this piano player come from? His roars were likely echoing throughout the entire lounge.
Find out.
Find out who that masked man is right now. After the show ended, Xia Qingyue didn't attend the celebration party. Amidst the swarming crowds and media, she walked straight into the nanny van he had arranged beforehand. The van's windows were tinted with one-way film, blocking out the frantic camera flashes outside, and shutting out all the noise and chaos. The atmosphere inside the van was strangely quiet. He sat in the passenger seat, having already taken off his mask. In his hand was that old Nokia phone, and he was playing Snake. It was as if the radiant piano god on stage just moments ago wasn't him at all. To him, everything that just happened was merely a casual helping hand, an inevitable step in protecting her. Xia Qingyue sat in the back seat, holding a fast-asleep Shihan in her arms. The little girl had slept soundly backstage, completely unaware of the intense drama that had just unfolded on stage. He could feel it. Her gaze lingered on the back of his neck, full of complexity and doubt. It was obvious she was hiding too many questions in her heart. That godlike piano skill, his absolute calm during the livestream incident, and that aura of having everything completely under control. None of these were things an ordinary landlord should possess. Finally, she broke the silence. She asked softly, "Did you study music before?" "Just a little bit." He didn't even turn his head. His expression was completely casual. "Back when I went to Vienna to feed the pigeons, I casually learned from a few old guys there for a couple of days." He didn't want to explain too much, There were things in the past she didn't need to know. He just wanted to use the simplest way to protect her peace. Xia Qingyue was speechless. A few old guys in Vienna. She probably knew he was just brushing her off. The car drove steadily into Wutong Alley. Tonight, for the entire entertainment industry, was a sleepless night. The live video of the song Left Hand Pointing to the Moon, in just one short hour, had broken all viewership records. It completely dominated the top 10 trending searches across the internet. Countless people were guessing the identity of that mysterious pianist. But to him, this was just completing a daily task. He didn't care about fame or fortune. He only did it to protect her. Upon arriving home, he carried Shihan upstairs. He carefully coaxed the little girl to sleep. Then he turned and went into the bathroom. By the time he walked out wrapped in a bathrobe, his hair still dripping wet. As he reached the top of the stairs, he saw Xia Qingyue sitting in the living room. In her hands were a few scattered documents. Her face was pale with shock. Her eyes were filled with absolute disbelief. And those documents were exactly what he had left in the inner pocket of his black shirt, the outfit he wore tonight. He had casually tossed it onto the sofa after getting out of the car. He knew very well. She had seen it. Those documents printed in English and French, with the prominent gold-plated logo at the top. GMG Global Media Group. There was no way she wouldn't recognize it. As a former pop diva, she understood better than anyone what GMG meant. It was the world's largest media giant, controlling half of the theater chains in Hollywood, the largest music company in Europe, along with the Grammy voting committee of this world. Those documents were the transfer confirmation for a 51% controlling stake in GMG Group. There was also a hostile takeover proposal for the Greater China business division of Xinhuang Entertainment. He wanted to acquire Xinhuang Entertainment for no other reason than to vent her anger, just to make Zhao Tai pay the price, just so that in the future, she could navigate the entertainment industry and shine brightly without facing any obstacles. What's wrong? Interested in my business empire? His voice, still carrying the dampness of the shower, suddenly rang out from behind her. His tone held no panic of having his secret exposed. Instead, it carried a hint of a helpless smile. Xia Jingyue jumped in startlement. The documents in her hands fell to the floor. She whipped her head around. She saw him standing at the top of the stairs in a bathrobe, revealing his firm, sculpted chest. Her face instantly flushed bright red. Xia Jingyue stammered out an explanation. I didn't mean to pry. Are these things real? You're the boss of GMG. Xiao Che walked downstairs. He bent down and picked up the documents from the floor. He casually dusted them off and tossed them back onto the coffee table. His tone was nonchalant. You could say that. He poured himself a glass of water and walked over to the window. Looking out at the old parasol tree with a wistful gaze, he added with a sigh. The former chairman owed me a favor. He insisted on shoving these shares into my hands. Originally, I didn't want to manage tens of thousands of people. It's too much of a hassle, but lately I've realized that having a bit of power really does save a lot of trouble, like keeping you safe and sound, for instance. Xia Qingyue looked at him. Her eyes were brimming with shock. It was like she was listening to a sci-fi story. Then why do you live here? Why pretend to be a landlord? She voiced another burning question in her heart. Xiao Che took a sip of water. He turned around and leaned against the windowsill. His gaze grew a bit profound, because it's lonely at the top. He walked toward her, step by step, until he backed her into the corner of the sofa. He leaned in, resting both hands on the back of the sofa, trapping her within his embrace. That strong, masculine scent instantly enveloped Qingyue. When you own everything, you realize that authenticity is the most expensive luxury. The people who approach me are either after my money
or my power.
Only here, in that bowl of braised beef noodles. In hearing Shihan call me dad, do I actually feel like a flesh and blood human being? He stared deeply into her eyes. His voice was deep and magnetic, carrying a hint of seduction. Now that you know my secret, according to business rules, people who know too much usually only meet one of two ends. Xia Qingyue's heart pounded wildly. She looked at him nervously. Her voice trembled. What ends? Being silenced. Xiao Che deliberately put on a fierce expression. Seeing her shrink back in fear, he couldn't help but burst into laughter. The second, he dropped a playful look, smiling like a cunning old fox. Is to become a partner, completely tied to my chariot, never able to escape for the rest of your life. He reached out and gently lifted her chin. His fingertips caressed her soft skin. His tone was gentle but firm. Miss Xia, for the sake of you being Shihan's mother, give you a special privilege. How about being my wife?